Objective 3 of Section 1.3 is to identify sources of bias in a statistical study. So let's first talk about what the sources of bias are. The first source of bias is called sampling bias. This happens when the sample is not representative of the population. The next kind of bias is called response bias, which happens when the data collected are not accurate. And then the third type of bias is non-response bias. This happens when the individuals who do respond have different characteristics than those who do not respond. So let's look at an example. An English professor sends an email to the first 100 students on her alphabetical roster and asks them whether they had cheated during that semester by copying another person's work and claiming it as their own. 8 students respond to the email. Identify the types of bias present. All right, so the first issue we have here is sampling bias. Let's look to see if there would be sampling bias. There is. The professor used a convenient sample by emailing only the first 100 students on her roster. It could be that the people at the beginning of the alphabet are different than the people at the end of the alphabet, and so this is not representative of all students on her roster. So there is sampling bias because the convenient sample is not a representative sample of the population of all students. Next is response bias. Asking students if they had ever cheated by copying another person's work is likely to elicit answers that are maybe not accurate. This is a sensitive question, and it's their teacher who's in charge of grading who is asking it. So students are likely, especially if they have cheated, to be dishonest when answering this question. And then finally, non-response bias. In this example, 100 students were sent the email and only 8 students responded. So too few of the students responded to the email. We have non-response bias because there are so many individuals who did not respond to the email survey that they received. So this is an example where all 3 sources of bias were present.